Everyone, I'm here with Chief Velasquez from the Lake Wales Police Department. We are in Lake Wales. We responded to assist Lake Wales this morning as a result of a domestic event that went terribly bad. Because it's in the city and his agency is the lead and we're only assisting, I'm going to turn it over to the Chief. Chief?
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. So we're here today on Lindsay Place in the Highland Point subdivision in the city of Lake Wales. What started out this morning as a domestic related situation has turned into a tragic scenario for a number of people involved. A number of people have been affected by this. At approximately 4:08 a.m. this morning, we received a call regarding a domestic disturbance. The domestic disturbance involved children, and the caller had wanted the police department to assist with removing the children from the residence. When officers arrived at the scene, a child ran out and said that the suspect, whose name is Antonio Oliver, he's 40 years old, his birthday is 4/20/83, was inside and that they thought they heard a gun being cocked. Officers were hailing with the PA system, trying to get the suspect to contact them, to come outside, call 911, whatever they had to do to establish contact with him. The suspect said he wanted just to walk outside and have law enforcement shoot him. We said we did not want that. We said just cooperate, don't shoot anybody, nobody has to get hurt. We wanted this to end peacefully. At one point the suspect said not to shoot into the house. The reason he said that was because he was essentially using the children that were inside as a shield. He didn't want the children to get hurt from what he was telling us. At about 7 a.m., officers heard a gunshot. As soon as they heard the gunshot, the SWAT team made emergency entry into the house, and when they did, they found the suspect deceased right behind the front door. Right at the front door, he was laying deceased. As they cleared the rest of the house, they also found a 19-year-old male, which is the stepson, and he was also deceased in a back bedroom. Right now, our main concern is the family, the survivors, and their mental health, and basically just their well-being. We want to make sure that they're going to be okay. What they've experienced today, nobody should ever experience. This was tragic. The number of people that were affected by this are countless. Not only the victims inside, the deceased, but every single one of these people have family members. Every single one of these first responders that showed up today, police, sheriff, every single one of them, they have families and they all have to deal with this. So the tragedy that occurred today, 2 people are dead, the suspect and a 19-year-old teenager, but the tragedy goes much, much further than that. Any questions?
To clarify, is your belief that the suspect killed the 19-year-old?
That's our belief at this time.
And the hostage situation was how long? About 3 hours or so?
Approximately 3 hours. It was in that time frame. As soon as we arrived on scene, we began trying to communicate with the suspect, and that was our goal, was to get him to step out peacefully and for this entire incident to just resolve peacefully. We wanted to get everybody help that needed help. He was obviously going through some kind of a crisis in his mind, and he just chose the wrong way to handle this.
You said there was a domestic disturbance involving children, which is what the initial call. Is there anything more you can describe about what that was?
We really can't, and again, this is a very active investigation. It's going to evolve as we go through this throughout the day. This is going to be a long, drawn-out investigation. What we know is that a female had called and asked for us to help getting the children out. She said she just wanted to get the children out and just let it go, just be finished with it. Obviously, he had other plans and didn't cooperate with that.
So how many people in total in the house? Like the mother, these children?
So when we arrived at the scene, there was the suspect, there was a 19-year-old, and then there were 2 females, 2 children, females, 16 and 14 years of age.
And the person that had called, she wasn't here about getting the children out?
The person that called came back to the scene to meet with law enforcement and wanted us to help get the children out of the house and just go away and just let it go.
Do we know when the 19
We don't know. The only gunshot that we heard was and we were here immediately after the initial call. We got here very quickly. The only gunshot that we heard was when the suspect fired, and that was when he took his life. And we made immediate entry into the house at that point. As soon as we hear gunfire, that's what we do, and that's what we're trained to do, is to go in and stop the threat as soon as we hear that.
Chief, do you know at this point if you've come here before? Have there been calls here to this home?
We don't, to my knowledge, no. There has been some, and again, as far as the suspect is concerned, I believe he does have some mild, light criminal history, nothing of significance. There has been, from what we're learning now, possibly some prior domestic violence between the suspect and the adult female, but none of that was ever reported to us at the time when it happened. We just learned of that today, that there had been some previous domestic violence, and those are things that we hear about quite often in domestic situations.
We always hear that around holidays can be a very volatile time. I don't think Easter had anything to do with this per se, but does the fact that it was around a very, a holiday like this have anything to do with it, or could that have been any spark at all?
We don't know the answer to that at this time. It's still very active, and this is going to evolve as we go. So everything that we can find out, we will, but it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of interviews. We have a lot of people that we have to deal with right now.
All the children are unharmed.
That's correct, except for the 19-year-old who's deceased. Sure.
Whenever SWAT made an emergency entrance into the house, we obviously, as the chief said, found the man deceased at the front door and the 19-year-old, but we also found numerous firearms. We consider ourselves very, very lucky today. Had he wanted to have a gunfight, he could have created a war. We saw numerous long guns, semi-automatics. We saw handguns with 50 caliber drums attached to them. So he had a lot of firearms. And the initial information was he possibly shot over his wife in the vehicle a long time ago, a month or 2 or 3. However, she did not report that to law enforcement at all. They worked through that on their own, and subsequently she put the guns in the back of her car, according to early information we have. Now, when and how the guns got back out of the car and into the house, we don't know. It appears at this time, though, from everything that we see, we also have 911 calls, which obviously we're not going to release now, where he talked to us and he begged us to shoot him. And we told him, no, we're not going to shoot you. And our negotiators worked fearlessly to get him to turn himself over to us. In fact, the officers, while hailing him inside the house, said, call 911 and talk to us, and he did. So we thought, well, we're going to resolve this pretty easily. What we don't know at this point in time is when did he shoot and kill the 19-year-old. But we know that there was a horrible situation. There was a hostage situation. He had these 2 children, and he made statements that he was using them as a shield, but not really. Don't shoot into the house. You might hit the kids. So he was dead set on shooting himself, according to the early information we have. And once again, as the chief said, we all came here to work this together. We were hoping for an appropriate resolution without anyone being injured, and we ended up with a murder-suicide.
You don't know about motive or anything?
Just domestic. And Josh asked earlier, we know that they all were at a party last evening, and apparently there was an argument after the party. But once again, this is 4 o'clock on a Monday morning, long after the party ended, and we were here about 3 hours. But the police officers did a magnificent job containing and controlling the event. SWAT team was called. We had the negotiators here. We did everything possible to resolve this peacefully, and he resolved it with violence, a lot of violence. Okay.